Imagine a game where you fight with language instead of swords. As an educational tool, it would be unparalleled. In fact, those kind of educational games are only now slowly starting to pick up on that. There is an untapped niche for language learning in video games, and I'm not talking about educational softwares like the Rosetta Stone or the Duolingo app with its green owl.
Now Duolingo Push can remind you wherever you are.
Shoo, shoo. I'm talking about more interactive and immersive games with graphics. Take the Influent game, for example. You walk around and click on objects. You see how they're written, you hear how they're spoken, and you're supposed to memorize those words for later when you're going to be tested on them. Okay, not the most exciting of games, but it's a good start. I frankly tried developing a few language learning video games myself. They were all terrible. The idea in them was the same as the idea in Influent: dual language, the need to memorize words, and to click the right answer. So this is one of the games I was developing. You help a factory worker by bringing him the tools that he's asking, and that's the challenge, to understand what he's asking and getting him the right tools. There is actually a funny story behind it, based on something that happened to me in real life. So my Russian was getting pretty good, and someone at my work, a place that kinda looked like this, only spoke Russian to me, as opposed to Hebrew, which we both knew, and I wanted to keep proving to him that my Russian is good enough. He asked me to bring him something from the toolbox, but I didn't know what the thing he was asking was. I didn't know that word, and instead of telling him that I don't know what he means, I just went ahead to the toolbox and tried to think what that word sounds like. Basically, I was trying to imagine what tool it was based on a word that I never heard before. So I figured I knew what screwdriver was, what the simple small tools were, but there was this one big awkward looking tool that I didn't know what it was, and I figured, he must means this tool. So I picked it up and I brought it to him. He looked at me like I dropped from another planet. He had no idea why I was holding what I was holding, and that clearly wasn't what he was asking for. We sorted out the misunderstanding, and thankfully he kept speaking Russian to me. But that never left me, so that's why I decided to make a game about that. I even modeled the character based on that person. I never did finish the game though. A really cool game I saw for language learning is called Learn Japanese to Survive. You basically learn Japanese and then you fight with that Japanese knowledge. It's pretty wicked to create a fighting system entirely based on your knowledge of your target language. Playing a game like Skyrim to learn a language, which you can do by changing the subtitles and audio language, it's easy to get distracted and forget why you're playing to begin with. You're playing to learn a language, and yet you find yourself fighting a bunch of monsters for a couple of hours and completely forget about your goals. At the end of the day, when you fight in those AAA games, you don't need language. So, this is brilliant. It's actually something I tried to implement myself in one of the many games that I never finished. And while I'm not a fan of anime, this game would certainly be on my list if I were to be learning Japanese. In some of the games that I was developing, I tried to do something similar with the fighting system. Unfortunately, I couldn't completely recover all the game files, so I can't show it to you. What I was able to recover was only this buggy sequence. When the goblin meets the girl, they're supposed to fight in a sort of war of words, partially inspired by the Curse of Monkey Island pirate fighting sequence with the lovable protagonist Guybrush Threepwood.
I'll leave you devastated, mutilated, and perforated.
Your odor alone makes me aggravated, agitated, and infuriated.
My system was much more simplified and without a lot of rhymes.
Every enemy I've met, I've annihilated.
With your breath, I'm sure they all suffocated.
At the end of the day, it's hard to find games that have the right balance of education and the gaming aspect. However, I did see people who take games that aren't supposed to be for language learning and turn it into a language learning tool. I'm talking about myself, as I've done it with Arma 3. Now crouch. No, you're crawling. You're crawling. Crouch. X. X. Okay, good. Okay. Now, crawl. And this other YouTube channel teaches Japanese while playing Zelda.
We gotta sneak up on them. And how do you do that? You crouch down. Want to get your pencils and memo pads ready because you gotta write that one down. Shagamu. Shagamimasu. Shagamu koto. That is to crouch down.
And then, of course, there are VR games.
We believe that the best way to learn a new language is to be immersed in a native city that speaks it.
Okay, so Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Skyrim, Fallout, Far Cry. Basically, that's every other game. The question is, what do they do differently? Well, they have voice recognition, which lets you speak.
I heard you came here, not just for the boat trip, but to practice your English too. Am I correct?
You are...
Very good.
So the robotic voice is a bit of a letdown, and there doesn't appear to be much gameplay to it, with people having finished it in 13 minutes. They pulled out from Steam VR with only 3 reviews, 2 were negative, but the graphics, the idea, it's certainly a step in the right direction that can be improved over time. When it comes to voice recognition, there is a huge technological challenge.
Should I divorce my wife for you?
I found 17 divorce lawyers. 5 of them are not far from you.
Oh wow, so I guess that's a yes.
So while I'll be looking at VR to advance us in this new age of language learning and technology, in the meanwhile we can enjoy what we have for the PC.